My friends, I thought I would do a bit of a comparison here with no forethought whatsoever of two of the most obviously similar, yet not quite as similar as you might think, sabers in the Gen 3 line as we kind of near the end of the I guess the lifespan of this line. I mean, it'll probably be around for a while, but the Gen 4s are going to be out pretty soon, and I'm sure that with that, the Gen 3s as we know them now are going to change and hopefully improve in ways that we don't need to discuss because we all know how they need to improve. At any rate, so in front of us we've got the Ranger and we've got the Progenitor. And whatever the LED is, which in this case is white, and over here is the dark blue, it's kind of irrelevant. I'm just going to sort of go over some of the, similarities and differences of these two hilts. And the one thing you'll notice is that the hilts are, generally speaking, if I line them up, not quite the same length. I'd say we've probably got about 1/4 of an inch difference between the two. So that's actually, I use my camera as sort of a way to line it. Well, actually, from my angle, they're about the same length. Maybe the Ranger has a slight edge. If so, it's just ever so slight. Now, the one thing that really defines these hilts obviously is the emitters, and they both have S-type slanted emitters, and that's pretty much where the similarities end, other than the fact that the blade retention screw is similarly positioned. On the Ranger it's a little bit deeper, and on the Progenitor it's a little bit further forward. So that's kind of interesting, and I think that occurs because of this choke point. The design of the choke point kind of pushes things this way, so that would affect the blade stability in the in the blade holder somewhat. Now, on the top of the emitter of the Ranger, you can see you have this little Old Republic style oval circle, and on the Progenitor you have this screw, this decorative screw. It's purely decorative, it serves no purpose, but it's just agreeable. And also on the sides, on the Ranger, it's pretty much clean all the way around to the other side, whereas the Progenitor attempts to emulate the design elements of Graphics in ways that I've covered in a previous video. Okay, other differences. Let's see. Let's get these lined up. Obviously, the interesting thing about the Rangers, it doesn't really have choke points per se. This doesn't really function as a very good choke point. You're just sort of left gripping the saber, generally from any point on the hilt. You could do it one or two-handed, although it works better as a one-handed. It's almost a Shoto size kind of hilt, whereas the Progenitor tends to be a little bit more suited to two-handed, even though it's pretty much the same size. It's just you have a natural choke point for your right hand here, and then your left hand can grip this leather section. Let's see, what else is there? Well, there's obvious differences in the hilt. The handle, on the Ranger sort of has this very, I really like this design, but it is kind of, you can sort of hear it, kind of sharp edges here that make it a little bit uncomfortable to handle. It's not a deal breaker, but it's definitely not the most comfortable. And obviously on the Progenitor you've got the leather wrap, and nothing really beats a leather wrap for comfort. So there aren't really a lot of sharp edges on the Progenitor. It's a much more comfortable saber to wield. There's sort of cut out portions all along the hilt of the Ranger. Okay, so you have the general same positioning of the switch, and the screws that hold said switch in place are in the same locations. Okay, so you have this detail, this long oval here on the Ranger, but on the Progenitor, you have just a bit of a box. This squared off section is sort of meant to emulate the control box on a Graflex. So if we move down the hilt, we get ourselves situated with the pommel. Now, in my review video of the Progenitor, I was kind of looking for this screw, and I gave up. Now this screw kind of holds the chassis in place, and on the Progenitor, that screw seems to be covered up by the wrap, and that could be a bit of a problem if you had need to take the Progenitor apart for whatever reason. And as I've recommended before, you pretty much don't want to do that with these sabers. They're far too fragile to really handle too much in the way of manipulation. You're going to negate your warranty. But if you wanted to, you'd probably have to remove the wrap at least to about here before you're able to access the retention screw that holds the chassis in place. So that's kind of an interesting element. But I think they were probably assuming that you weren't going to be going in there and rooting around, negating your warranty, and possibly damaging the saber. So, lastly, the pommels. The pommel on the Ranger just sort of continues on a straight line and then terminates in a rather nondescript fashion, whereas on the Progenitor it tapers off, and then it has these little, well, I will call them windows, but they're on the wrong side of the saber that allow the sound to go out off the sides. So you have that design element, which is rather interesting. And that sort of sums up the visual tour of these two sabers, so you can get an idea of what the differences are. I mean, I know that when I saw them for the first time, I had a difficult time choosing between the two, and then obviously I ended up ordering all of them because I'm a slave to my passions. But that sort of covers the details. Now, let's turn them on, and you'll find that there's very similar inadequacies in the electronics of both of them. Of all my sabers, of all my Gen 3 sabers, these two are kind of the most problematic. And interestingly enough,
Saberforge Crimson.
so you've got a Crimson,
Saberforge Viridian.
and you got Viridian. Now, I really like this line and what they do with the backlit switches. As you can see, they represent the colors that the LED presents. So that's really nice. They can continue doing that, please. White blade, blue blade. And the two different font sounds. Crimson. And Viridian. Oop.
Saberforge Gen.
Ironically, Viridian is a little bit deeper than Crimson. That's rather interesting. And there you have it. So that's a nice little comparison of these two sabers. In case you were curious as to how they differentiate, now you have your answer. Okay. Well, that pretty much ends this sermon. So I hope everyone enjoyed this little comparison video. And if you're so inclined as to comment, please do so. I'm always willing to answer questions to the best of my ability. And if you could like and subscribe, that's super helpful to me as I try to make my channel grow. And just want everyone to know that I appreciate each and every one of you. My love to you all. And I will talk to you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.